now since these maps have been posted on the NA server. Just like 2 days ago, they got posted on the other two servers, which is completely unusual. But if you're wondering why you haven't seen them or why they were so late, for those of you maybe watching from Europe, that's why. But now after having some time to play on them, I'm kind of more or less gauged maybe what's bad, what's good, and kind of just more so, which maps maybe you want to ban or which ones you want to play, depending on how you like to play, stylistically. As you can see here, the only map that I have vetoed is this first one up here. And actually, it's a little bit loud here. There you go. Oh, there you go. Nice. All right. So as you can see, the only one I have vetoed here is this first one here, Red Station or whatever it's called. This one is like insane. In case you guys didn't know, I think some of you might be familiar with this. I'm one of the judges for the TLMC, the Team Liquid Map Contest. And so basically all these maps I have already kind of been through when I was doing the map judging. And I can tell you 100% that this particular map, I remember, stood out to me significantly. Because I think it was a freestyle map. And you can't really tell too well here, but down here, there's like a ton of like random destructible debris. And so the map is like really crazy. I mean, honestly, maybe a good mech map because you get free like 4 bases or so. But honestly, the map's so crazy that I just don't want to play it for that reason. If you like crazy maps, I don't really think this is necessarily bad for Terran. Just, if you do play a TVT, it might be a little bit annoying. Or maybe against a Protoss, whether, like races that can camp really hard on like 4 bases and make kind of like insane armies. So the first that come to mind are like mech armies or like Void Ray, or it's not Void Ray, sorry, going straight into air. This is the kind of map for it. So if you don't like playing those kinds of games, this might be a map you want to veto. But if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely keep it. That's my only veto though. But I'll still go through, the rest of the maps. And like I said, I'm just gonna talk about more or less the pros and cons, and I kind of up to you guys what you want to veto. Oceanborn. So there's a couple of really good mech maps in this pool actually, and basically the way you vet whether or not a map is good for mech is by how quickly you could take 4 bases. So this map, it's not as easy to take 4 bases, but it's pretty good to take 3 base setup. And I feel like with the change with the Cyclone, mech is not as fragile early on, so it's definitely possible to get those 3 bases pretty quickly. So this map, another thing about it too, besides just a quick 3 base here setup, is that there's ramps leading up to the base. So there's one big ramp right here, one big ramp over here, and then there's like a little choke over here, a little pathway over here, but that can kind of be sealed off. So any map that basically has, multiple ramps that need to go up the high ground to get to a base is usually pretty good for mech, because ramps are like chokes. So if you sit on the ramp trying to go up and there's 10 tanks above it, you can get killed there. So if you're a Terran player and you're worried about playing against mech, honestly, Oceanborn is pretty good for that kind of gameplay. So don't be surprised if you see that in your TVTs. But if you like playing mech against other races, I think this is a good map for it for the most part. Like I said, the only big deal here is just the lack of the lack of accessibility to the fourth. The same thing applies to the other races though. So if, for example, you're playing, TVP, TVZ, maybe more so TVP, but if you're playing TVP and you want to jump on like some of these bases here because they're pretty far out, especially this one right here is like really exposed. So some of these bases are a bit easier to jump on and abuse, especially against Protoss, I think. So like I said, 3 base setup pretty easy, but once you get to the 4th base, it could be a little bit more difficult to take. And yeah, so overall, I think this is not too bad of a map, pretty solid all around. Just I guess, like I said, the only concern being, I guess, mech. This next one here, I actually really like, but there's a little bit of a theme with some of these maps, and that theme is the difficulty of, or not, maybe not the difficulty so much, but the distance of the 3rd base is kind of far, especially if you expand with the triangular setup. This one and I think Site Delta are kind of similar. So with this particular map here, the 4th base is really far from the 3rd. And that makes it kind of difficult because there's a lot of speed zones on this map. So with the speed zones, and obviously like units can rush across a bit faster. So if I'm trying to defend both these bases, it's kind of hard. Especially my opponent's doing a good job of like rotating around the map. So this is the kind of map where you could get bulldozed. So just like some ideas are, Roach Ravager pushes could be really strong on this map if you take this triangular base setup. Gateway Man could be a little bit scary just because you're kind of far away from your natural. So sometimes what could happen is they could kind of go up this middle ramp right here and then sit right outside of your natural, but on top of this high ground ramp from your third, leading to your third, and then you get cut off of everything and you can kind of just die. So this is a good map for bulldozing. Here I will say that the one nice thing about the third base is that although it's a little bit far away, as well as the fourth, there's like this pillar right here, and then there's like ways to wall this little area here. So this map, besides that, is really good for mech as well once they get that 4 base setup. So if this is if you don't like playing TVT, like this might be another veto. So honestly, like in terms of mech, if you're really just trying to figure out whether or not you want to play against Turtle Mech TVT, this is like a map I would veto probably. Oceanborn I wouldn't veto, but this one I would definitely veto. I played some games on this map against mech Terrans, and it's just like it's pretty insane. Honestly, you really have to be patient and kind of go for like a longer game, macro game, where you like do a proper era transition from bio and whatnot. So if you like playing really YOLO bio gameplay against mech, this might not be the best map for that. So yeah, like I said, this is probably a map. That I would veto if you hate that style, or just be mentally prepared for it, I guess. But otherwise, I guess the biggest issue is just fourth base can be pretty far, third base a little bit far. So just keep an eye out for those kinds of like roach ravager pushes and stuff. All right, hard lead. This map seems pretty fun. Kind of a similar theme here, where the third is a little bit farther out. And then there's like these destructible rocks here and a high ground ramp here. But the nice thing about this map is that you could take the forward base as the fourth, and then it makes it, by taking this forward base first, it makes it easier to take the back base. So this map is honestly fairly standard. I like it. It's actually not big. There's actually not that many bases. And the corner bases here are like the last bases to take, and they're the most difficult to take for all the races. So it's not. I really find any complaints with this map. I think it's kind of nice. I mean, I think maybe the only issue is this outside part here, outside your natural, is like really small sometimes. So especially if you have like Thors moving around and whatnot. So just keep in mind maybe late game stuff. But this map I definitely wouldn't veto. I think this map is completely fine. Site Delta is a good map for Terran, I think, especially if you like playing 2-base kind of builds. The third and the fourth base are pretty hard to take. So if you like cutting off people, splitting them off from their bases, kind of like holding this position down here, or, abusing drops to the main, especially if the races take the linear third here. I mean, this map is just like, I think this map is kind of hard for Protoss players to take a third on and be able to defend things like multi-prong and whatnot. So I think this is a solid 2-base kind of map. So if you like playing 2-base builds like 5 racks, Raven push, or like 5 racks, I don't know, 5 racks 2-base on TVZ, this map's probably pretty good for that. And there's some decent tank spots around here that you could abuse. And yeah, I mean, and in the late game this map is fine as well. Like I like the base setup here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and kind of expand this way, and then take this one later, for example. But yeah, that's it. This map's probably not really too good for mech though, so I wouldn't really expect to see that. And yeah, this is probably a map I wouldn't veto personally. Okay, this map I think can be also very good for mech in terms of the 4-base setup, but it would be weak. Sorry, it would be weak in the early game as well, similar to Solaris, where like the third base is kind of out there, especially this triangular third base here. So they'd have to if you really kind of just like position yourself here and kind of like be aggressive, you could really delay a 4th base for quite long, just because it's, like I said, of the distance between the bases. This map is a little bit annoying to maneuver around the map. There's a lot of like random rocks and stuff, like destructible debris in the middle of the map. So if that shit is annoying for you, then I would definitely consider vetoing it. But yeah, there's a lot of like random pathways and then like destructible rocks and whatnot. So if that's something that kind of bugs you or annoys you, this could be something that I would veto. But like I was mentioning earlier about how this is a really common theme, really just like the third bases here are pretty far from the fourth. But once you get that 4-base set up, it becomes a bit easier to hold because, as you can see, there's a ramp here, so they have to go up ramps. But it's getting that 4th base setup that could be kind of difficult depending on who's playing what, what race you're playing against. But this is similar, maybe like a 3-base all-in, 2-base all-in. A Terran could be a bit stronger. But then playing Terran later on in longer games can be difficult trying to defend like your 5th base, for example, which could be really far away from your 4th. So this is kind of like 50-50, pros and cons, like I said. I personally like the map, but I will say, honestly, the biggest thing for me has been just like the pathing of this on this map is kind of annoying with the rocks and can be very confusing, I guess. But otherwise, that's it. Okay, Equilibrium. This map is pretty weird. Very similar theme again. 3rd base is kind of out there. But the biggest deal about this map is kind of how you're kind of expanding downwards, similar to Stargazers, minus the pocket base. It's kind of been weird. I haven't really played this map too much, to be honest. So I'm still like not sure about it. I feel like a lot of people are vetoing it because I haven't played on it too much. But the rush distance between natural to natural doesn't feel too far, and there's also like this weird golden base setup down here. The map is really wide, so there's a lot of like avenues of attack. Like up here, for example, you can get Dune Drop at the main. But like I said, because we're very wide, there's a lot of avenues of attack. So just be careful of like army rotations and stuff. Kind of just being able to see where things are coming from and whatnot. Like I had a game where somebody like literally walked all the way down here at the end of the map and then showed up at my 4th. Where and like obviously they could have gone up here, they could have gone through the middle, even they could have gone like down here through the middle, down again and through the middle. Which is just like it can be super obnoxious to deal with. But honestly, otherwise I don't really see anything wrong with this map. It seems kind of fun actually. There is a lot of chokes going into the bases, so late game Terran seems like it could be strong on this map. Like for example, this base up here, there's like a choke, like a small path here and a small path here, but that's pretty much it. So late game Terran against Zerg and Protoss would probably be pretty good on this map. So if you're behind the game and you're like, how do I come back? I would probably just like turtle here and abuse the 5 base setup. And yeah, I mean, like you just really not that many bases on this map. Actually, there's some down here. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm honestly very indifferent about this map. I don't really see anything like super obnoxious about it, like the other ones we talked about. Golden Aura here. This map is pretty tough, because of how open it is, kind of like through the middle here. So this base is very open, right? This one down here, and then this area here is pretty open, especially once they kill the rocks. It can be difficult. If they don't kill the rocks, it's nice, but as soon as they kill the rocks, there's a lot more accessibility, and it's very open. A lot of rams, as you can see. So turtling on this map is probably pretty good. The 4th base setup here, the 4th base is really small, or the linear 3rd is really small. So that's probably a con for it. But I can definitely see mech being annoying to play on or play against on this map. And same thing like late game TVZ, you can probably turtle fairly decently because of the ramps. Yeah, one here, you got 2 up here, and then the base is really small, right? Because I'm up here. So really like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you could probably do a decent 5 base setup. This one is really pretty far though, so there might be some difficulty in keeping that one. And then you could also take this one here, which is closer, but again, it's a little bit more open. So then that would be the negative thing about it. But honestly, because the ramps kind of close and the high ground's kind of close to the 5th, it could be easier to defend that. So this map, maybe against Zerg, is going to be a bit tough. And then depending on how the Protoss plays stylistically, like if they're doing a lot of Zealot run buys and DT run buys, this map might be tough to play late game. But I would say like the first 3 bases, 4 bases are fairly easy. Just it'll feel really weird because the 3rd base is really far out there. All right, if you take the little triangular 3rd, the 4th base is like all the way down here. So you just want to make sure you have vision. That's a really big thing about these maps, guys. Like, because some of the bases are kind of far from each other and there's a lot of avenues of attack, map vision has just become even more important than it was before. And like it was already important, but I mean, like seriously, some of these maps you could literally, somebody could just walk around and just fucking kill you, and like you wouldn't even see it coming, and then you wouldn't even be close to your defending your own base because you're so far away, right? Like if I show up at this point right here and just camp at your natural, you're like dead, right? Because you're sitting at your 3rd and it's fucking far away. So yeah, that's something that I would definitely try to emphasize on, guys. If it's something you don't do already, I would definitely recommend to start doing that. And then this last one here, I looked up how to pronounce this, and apparently there's like 4 different ways to pronounce it or something like that. Nobody's really in agreement. So I'm just not gonna say anything. regarding its name. This map's pretty cool, to be honest. Honestly, same thing. It seems a little decent for mech, especially take like 4 base setup. It base be a little bit more difficult. The one thing I noticed about this map though is that so there's a mineral wall right here, and then if you mine it out, it opens up these other bases similar to golden wall. And I think that expanding downwards is actually really good. So you could go main here, natural here, third here, fourth, gold fifth, and then 6 base setup. And it's pretty decent. You could wall this, you could wall this, and then yeah, like you can expand downwards. So this map, I would kind of treat it like golden wall, maybe expand downwards, like we did on that map. Or you know, if you don't want to, it's fine. But then what ends up happening is like if you don't open these, for example, you can kind of get abused from down here. Like I can siege my tanks right here, hit your third, or like drops, for example, or dealing with mutas, like drop pulls out, lands down here. You can't really access this mineral walkway if you don't mine it out. And then against mutas, same thing. Like if he flies into your main, kills your stuff, flies out, you can't really chase the mutas because you have to make sure you mine that mineral wall there. But when I was playing on this map, the game's always transitioned into like us taking the bottom bases, and the bottom bases became the most important. Especially if you guys started by expanding top side, like up here. But otherwise, like no really like besides the odd symmetry, I've not really noticed anything particularly busted on this map or annoying. So this is not something I would veto. But yeah, so pretty much the vetoes here are just gonna depend on maybe 2 things: if you hate playing camping mech, or if the distance of the third of the triangular third is something that bothers you significantly. As that could be very annoying, especially if you don't play like 2 base builds stylistically and whatnot, or maybe like some aggressive builds. Because I do think harder or farther thirds can be pretty tough to take for the other races if the opponent plays aggressive. But if the opponent does not play aggressive, I feel like Zerg, especially for example, it's easier to connect all the bases because of the creep, right? It's easier to connect all the bases so they can cover more ground faster and whatnot. So, but the catch being that in, you know, like the first 6-7 minutes, it can be tough to hold on to that third because of the aggression. But yeah, so that's it for this video, guys. I'll be uploading some more content regarding the new patch, but I will say that most of the new content that I'll be posting regarding the new patch will either start off on my Ko-fi page or will be exclusively on my Ko-fi page, which is like my Patreon. So that if you want to check that out, maybe get ahead on the new patch, highly recommend that. But yeah, that's it, guys. Let me know what you guys think about the new maps and if there's anything I missed. And oh, and last thing, I did notice that some of the maps don't have the Overlord pillar, which is kind of nice. I can't remember which ones exactly, as I'm still getting used to all the names. But I have seen that some of the maps do not have Overlord pillars, which is honestly pretty dope. Okay, but now that's it. And yeah, all right, guys. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching as always, and peace.